membrane lines all the body cavities that are open to the outside. And then you have serous membranes, which it lists first in your book. Serous membrane lines body cavities that are closed off. You have body cavities inside you that are closed off. Like your pleura. Do you remember studying the pleura? The right pleural cavity and the left pleural cavity. Those are cavities of your lungs. Well, lining those cavities, you have serous membrane, and it squirts fluid out. It's called serous fluid. And serous fluid is real slippery, you see. And so as you're moving around like this, I don't know why you would be moving like this, but if you were, this is how I dance at Ziggy's. If you're moving like this, your organs just slide along, you see. The lungs slide and move past the wall of the cavity, and so there's not friction. So all of your organs can kind of slide and move past one another because of the serous membrane. So that's important. Serous fluid lubricates. And then the cutaneous membrane. The cutaneous membrane is your skin. It's on the outside. So the skin is also known as the cutaneous membrane. We have a whole chapter on skin. Next chapter. And we're going to spend 4 days talking about the skin and all that sort of stuff. And then you finally have synovial membrane. Synovial membranes line the cavities of your joints. So like your elbow joint, your knee joint, even your joints between the bones of your fingers are little cavities. They're little. You'll have a bone here. Well, I can show you with these actual bones. Okay. Here's your elbow, and you can see the way the elbow moves. There is a membrane that kind of goes over right here. It goes over and around. It's like there's a plastic bag. It's not plastic. It's made of cells that encloses this whole area. And the membrane, the cells that make up the membrane secrete a special fluid. It's called synovial fluid. And the synovial fluid gets all between the bones there and lubricates the joint. And so you can move without the bones actually rubbing against each other. There's a thin layer of liquid that the bones move across. And the bones never actually touch each other. That's kind of the beauty of it. Even though this bone here is, they say the arm bone's connected to the arm bone or something. I don't know how the song goes, but the bones actually don't connect. They don't actually touch. There's fluid between them. And so you have these synovial membranes that secrete that fluid. So you got to know all 4 membranes. It's on page 110 at the top left. It just lists down the 4. And we're going to study joints and synovial membranes more in the chapter on bones. So we'll address that a little bit more later. Okay? Now, muscle. Muscle tissue is used for movement. And there's 3 types of muscle tissue that we'll see. The first type is called skeletal muscle, and it looks like this. And there's the drawing of it on the left and the picture of it on the right. Now, one thing you'll notice when you look at skeletal muscle under the microscope, it's got lines in it. They're called striations. You see that word striations? You can see these lines here. And here's the thing about seeing the striations. You have to focus the microscope just right to be able to see the striations. If you have it slightly out of focus, you won't be able to see them. So what you need to do when looking at skeletal muscle slides under the microscope, you need to get them focused just right. You may have to move the slide around a bit to get it at a spot where you can really see the striations well. But you'll be able to see them, and I want you to look at them and draw them. You know, this might be on the test. I'll have this type of muscle, and you can tell skeletal muscle by the striations. Skeletal muscle is the kind of muscle that has very intense striations that are very easily seen if you have it focused right. And oh, by the way, skeletal muscles are muscles like when I say when you say make a muscle and you go like that and you're going, see how big it is, you know, it's huge. I know. I work out a little bit. And so that's skeletal muscle, the muscles that are on your body that you can see and that you can control. Skeletal muscle is controlled voluntarily. I could say, I'll move my arm now, and then I can move it. I am in voluntary control of my skeletal muscles. Okay? Now, another type of muscle is called smooth muscle. These muscles you are not in voluntary control of. The cells are tapered at both ends. Tapered means it comes to a point. And you can see they're kind of thin looking. And when they're all together next to one another, they look kind of jumbled up. But this is how it'll look under your microscope. And you can see it's got a nucleus. Each cell has a nucleus. And they're these little thin tapered cells. And what they do is they don't have any of the striations. That's one thing. You won't see any striations in smooth muscle. And what they do is they surround a lot of the organs in your body and help your internal organs work. Like, for instance, your digestive system is surrounded by smooth muscle. And smooth muscle has very slow, rhythmic contractions. For instance, they surround your intestine, and they kind of squeeze your intestine like this and move the food along through your intestine. Very slowly. The food takes a whole day to get all the way through your intestine, through your stomach, and through your small intestine, and then finally through your colon, and then you poop it out. But it takes about a whole day for that food to move. It's about a 30-foot journey all the way through your intestines. So the whole time your intestines are just kind of going, the smooth muscle is just kind of going like this, squeezing the intestines. What were you going to say?
If you have diarrhea, what does that mean?
That means that the signals have come from your brain and it's told those intestines to speed it up because you got something bad in there and you want to get it out.
Does that mean like all the water?
Yeah, that means all the water is not reabsorbed by the body and you lose water.
Are you hydrated after you have diarrhea?
Yeah. People who die from severe diarrhea, you can die from severe diarrhea and you die from dehydration. A lot of you'll get that if you get a bug inside you called a giardia. You may have heard of that. It comes from drinking water that's animals been pooping in. You know, so you usually don't want to just take your canteen and get it from a stream because you got to get giardia in that, and that causes really bad diarrhea. And basically, people just dry up because any water you drink just goes right through you and comes out your butt, and you never get water into your body. Terrible way to go. You die on the John. This is cardiac muscle. Oh, by the way, smooth muscle is not under voluntary control. It's involuntary. So you can't say, oh, digest faster and make it go faster by thinking. There's also smooth muscle surrounding your blood vessels and can tell it to squeeze shut and shut up. You can shut off certain blood vessels going to different parts of your body when you don't need blood. None of that's under your voluntary control. So smooth muscle is different from skeletal muscle. Then finally you have cardiac muscle. And cardiac muscle is muscle that's found only in the heart. And it has striations. Do you see the striations there? But it's not nearly as organized as the skeletal muscle. And the cells are kind of branched. They're not, skeletal muscle cells are all long and thin, but cardiac muscle cells are kind of branched. It looks like tree branches coming off of the fibers. And they do have some striation, but it's a lot fainter and harder to see. And you just kind of got to look at it under the microscope to realize the difference between them. But that's what cardiac muscle looks like. And then 2 slides back, that's skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle cells are all long and about the same size. And the striations show up really well.
With the cardiac muscle, is it like branched off that way so for better circulation?
I'm not exactly sure why it has that formation. That's a good question.
It's kind of like a circuit, you know what I mean? Because if one part gets clogged, you can go to another part.
Yeah, but the clogging occurs in the blood vessels. But yeah, the branching of the cells does cause it to be interwoven a bit. So I don't know why that is. But the heart is also, cardiac muscle is also involuntary. You can't control, you can't say slow down heart. There's actually a few people who have the part of their brain that controls voluntary muscle and the part of their brain that controls involuntary muscle they have connections between those parts of the brain. So there are some people, it's about 1 in a million, that can control their involuntary muscles, can voluntary control them. It's kind of like a mutation. It's not always good, because you can tell your heart to slow down, or even tell your heart to stop. And if you do that accidentally, maybe while you're asleep or something during a dream, it could kill you. So those people don't necessarily have a big advantage. But there are stories about ninjas that can stop their own heart and play dead. And then when the guy's leaning over listening and goes, he's dead, and then the ninja kills him.
Yeah.
And this is possibly a true thing, because some people, very few, can actually control their involuntary muscle.
Killed someone.
Hold on, do I need
If
to
you
take
had a
that?
headache, you would make it stop.
That was actually good.
Now, what's that?
If you had a headache, you can make that stop.
You could, if you could control that, you could maybe redirect the flow of blood in your brain. That might be interesting. I don't know how it works, because I can't do it. I'm not a ninja.
Or did you get that highlighter?
I never trained as a ninja. Finally, nervous tissue. 5.6 talks about nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is tissue that can send messages from one place to another. And the nerve cells look like this under the scope. They're very easy to see. It's got a nucleus and a cell body, and then extensions coming off of it. And these extensions are like wiring that can go from one place to another in the body. And the slides we have in there that have nerve tissue on them it'll say bovine spinal cord. It's a spinal cord taken from a cow, and they put it on a slide, or a pig or something. And so the signals can be sent along these cellular processes that they show in here. And so this is probably the only slide you can look at on medium power and still see the cells really well, because nerve cells are pretty big. And so look at on the nervous tissue. You might want to make a little note to yourself. Look on medium power, and you'll probably get a better look. Because when you go to high power, then you're only looking at part of this. You may not be able to see the whole thing like it's shown here. But again, nervous tissue sends signals from one place to another. We spend a whole chapter on the nervous system later, and we'll talk about how it works in particular. Okay? So here's the deal. You look at these slides under the scopes for today, the rest of today, and tomorrow, and Monday. And you draw them all, and you get me to check you off. And you'll get a grade for where I check you off, and you'll get a grade for all your lab drawing sheets. If you need more lab drawing sheets, they're in this little drawer right here. More lab drawing sheets. Michael, did you see where more lab drawing sheets are?
Yes, sir.
How good are you?
Pretty good.
And And you also, those of you who haven't done your ID sheet, you got to do that in the next 3 days. So we basically have 2.5 days here, tomorrow, Monday, and today, to get everything done. Then Tuesday is, Tuesday is the last day to finish. Wednesday is a review, a game I like to call Anatomy. It's like Jeopardy, but it's Anatomy. And then Thursday's the test. Okay? Understanding? Go for it.